Welcome to you all, wherever you're joining us from around the world for International Coach Week 2021. My name is Natalie Ashton from Open Door Coaching, and it's a pleasure to be joining you all. We've just found out that people are joining us from Southern California. The fabulous Emma Doyle is with us here today from Washington, DC. People from Victoria down far from Cape Schanck and in the CBD at Collins Street as well. And I want to also welcome you all to the line today and pay a bit of a tribute to our partners, Synergy Global, and the wonderful Heather Jane Gray, who's on the line with us, joining us for International Coach Week and partnering with us. So before I begin, I'd just like to do the acknowledgement to the country. And if you wouldn't mind flicking our next slide for everyone, that's the way. We acknowledge the traditional owners, the custodians on the lands on which we meet today, and their continuing connection to the land, waters, and communities of Australia. And we pay our respects to them and to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I am grateful for our opportunity to come together today. We're all meeting on different lands all around the world. And I am super grateful for the fabulous Emma Doyle joining us today. Emma is a long-term friend, colleague. You can read her bio on our webpage. But when I'm thinking about Emma, I think about amazing energy. I think about the gifts that she brings to the world in terms of her skills, not only in tennis, but also her coaching skills. And when I think about Emma, I think about Sir John Whitmore. And Sir John Whitmore, he started out introducing the world to the Grow model on the tennis court. He was dealing with some IBM executives at the time, and they said, do you reckon what you're doing with us on the tennis court could actually work in the corporate world? And of course, Sir John Whitmore, all those years ago, said yes, and he founded really what we know to be the modern coaching of today. Well, take a step forward about 30 years and we have Emma Doyle, and she is lighting up the world and has been for a long time now on the tennis court, but also has brought the coaching skills to the tennis court. So it's wonderful to have you here, Em. It's wonderful to learn from you, and I'll hand over to you now as you share with us what all great champions understand, and also then what we can learn from that as well. So over to you, Em. If everyone would like to, sorry, I'll say one more thing. If everyone would like to interact, ask questions, you're more than welcome to do that. Just post a message into the chat box for us. You can label it, just choose panelists and all attendees. We can pick up your comments. You can ask Emma comments anytime you like. And if you are here because you would really like to earn those ICF CCEUs, don't worry, we've got you covered. At the end of the webinar today, at the end of our session today, I will put our CCEU certificate into the chat box and you can download it straight away. If you can't download it, don't worry, you can screenshot it, but that'll be nice and efficient for you to collect your CCEU points as well. So Em, wonderful to have you again. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. That's certainly one of the best intros I've ever had. So I appreciate you, Nat, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But I appreciate everyone for being here, and I'm really excited to bring to you what do all champions have in common. So we've got a great webinar ahead of us and lots of content. I am from a tennis background. You can tell from this accent, even though I am in Washington, DC, Melburnian at heart. So I spend 3 months of the year in, I guess, in the new normal times in East Brunswick, and otherwise I live out of Denver, Colorado, and I'm here working in Washington, DC in the smallest ever hotel room. But that's the beauty of Zoom. We can make it work from anywhere in the world. I am going to invite you to be involved actively, as I always do. That's the way I present in the chat box, and I'll go through that in just a minute. So yeah, as I said, just really super excited to be here. And I wanted to just start with a little bit of background on my coaching. I've been coaching for I was around 30 years of age. So coaching was actually my first part-time job. So I was just totally burnt out with tennis coaching. And I was really struggling. I was coaching at a very high level and taking a lot of junior teams overseas, representing Australia. And I found that, I'd take a team away and I could relate to half my players, but not necessarily the other half. And I just didn't have enough tools in my toolkit, in my coaching toolkit. I had a lot of knowledge, and if you were similar in learning preference and behavioral style to me, then I sort of often brought out the best in that player, but I didn't quite understand that player, and especially how to best communicate with parents. So I actually got out of tennis altogether. And that is, I do want to start with my relationship with the Open Door coaching group. And I thought I was going to leave tennis. And it was doing the Cert 4 in workplace and business coaching that my mind was just blown away, because these were skills that weren't taught in coaching courses. And I felt I just had so much to give back to tennis. And so I didn't stop there. I went ahead with Nat and did the diploma as well, because I was so fascinated about, does your personality match your game style? And I even ran a dating business, doubles for singles, and all different ways of, when I knew about different ways to communicate, that was just so fascinating, because the penny dropped when I realized that I had to change who I was to be able to bring out the best in my players. So that was a huge sort of moment in time for me, and which is now the reason that I even went on and did neuro-linguistic programming with Marvin, and I wouldn't have done that if it also wasn't for you, Nat. So really appreciate it. That's my ICF Colorado chapter. So, it's amazing. It's such a great community. Of course, I'm sure you all know and agree with that. So I just wanted to start with that, and also that I updated to PCC just this year. So excited about continuing the journey of coaching, whether it be on or off the court. So just a little bit of my background to kick us off, and also which creates, total gratitude for the fact that my life has taken on such a unique journey, the way we always reinvent ourselves with our career. So, of course, in the chat box, you'll see in a minute, I'm going to have a little competition going in the chat box as well. First person gratitudes. I know some of you might have even done your morning meditation and yoga and stretching and get your energy up, but I would love to just see in the chat box. I want to see it filling up with everybody's gratitudes. So I'm really grateful to the Open Door coaching group, the group of coaches that I met on that very first course. We're still in contact today, especially during pandemic times. We were really relied on supporting each other, and of course to Natalie Ashdown. So the chat box, feel free to, I've got it up there and I can thank you. Excellent. They're coming in now. Absolutely. Grateful to come together. Yeah, absolutely. Right here in the moment to learn. Yeah, thank you so much. I'd love that. Please keep the chat box going. All right. So what makes a great coach? I just want to start with that. And I'll tell you why right at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to start with it, and I'm going to finish with what makes a great coach. This is from my own research, and I'm up to around 445 coaches, mainly tennis coaches, but there are business coaches as well, 50-50 men and women. And I just wanted to share with you one of the top 3 qualities. As Judy Murray's a great friend, great colleague, and she said, loving the gratitudes continuing to come in, she said, someone who listens. And then I had the opportunity to ask Patrick Moratoglu, Serena Williams's coach, and he said, someone who listens. He took it one step further and he said, you have to be able to hear what the player is thinking. And then even more recently, I built up the courage. I haven't met Billie Jean King yet, but it is on my list. And she said, someone who, first person, starts with L in the chat box. Who's going to pop it in there for me? Of course, she said, someone who, thank you, Heather, Jane, beautiful, someone who listens. So I just wanted to start with that. I think it's just a great reminder. I'm sure we've got a lot of coaches on here, and deep level listening was another answer by someone recently, and beyond listening. I think when we really tap into that as coaches, that's when we can bring out the best in ourselves. So I'm going to start. That's just a little hint of what's coming right at the end, and hopefully an incentive for you to all stay with us. Okay, so now what do all great champions have in common? And we're getting there, I promise. But again, I want to do a little bit of fun in the chat box. And I want first person in the chat box, who do you think these famous tennis players are? They're starting with maybe this one's a little bit easier if we've got some tennis fans in the house. Thank you, Peter. Yes, Venus and Serena Williams. Now, the next photo I'm going to be a bit vulnerable and show you is, of course, when I went to Bollettieri's, I couldn't get a job and I just rocked up in Florida anyway. And you can see there, I had the opportunity to meet Serena. And of course, I was a very passionate coach, and I'd written down, that was her practice session that day, and I'd written down all these notes, and I was so excited. I had that opportunity to talk to her, and I wanted to ask her why she was doing that drill, and about the training session for my tennis knowledge. And of course, what did she want to talk about? Shopping and coffee down Chapel Street and all the Melbourne little favourite hotspots. So sometimes I think, again, this is a little clue. Sometimes where we think we're heading, of course, it's not always where we end up, or it's not always where we have to start as coaches, which I'm sure many of you would experience in your coaching sessions. All right, the next one, get ready in the chat box. Thank you, so true. I love it. All right, the next one, this one's might be a little bit harder. We'll see how you go. Okay, sorry, that was the answer, which you all got right. All right, the next one. Who am I? Who is this young little player? So great to see him on a modified court, even though they didn't have the modified equipment back then, and just using two hands there on the forehand. I'll give you another picture just in case while you're giving a bit more thinking time. It makes it a bit more obvious there in the face. Anyone want to have a go? I love people that take action and have a go. Thank you, Stephen, for giving it a go. We've had a couple more. Okay, so no one's got it yet. Drum roll. Ting. Ready. Yes. Thank you, Jacqueline. I think you got it first, or somebody just there above you in the chat box. It is, of course, Roger Federer. All right, and the reason that I'm showing you pictures of even, these players as champions as kids is because when I went along to one of my first ever talent ID days as a coach, they actually put up this picture and they said, if your ring finger is longer than your index finger, that you were exposed to more testosterone in the womb during childbirth. And if your index finger is longer than your ring finger, as in the picture B, then you were exposed to more estrogen during that 9-month period. And I thought, oh my goodness. Now, how many of you, be honest, how many have got your hand up now at home and you are having a look at your absolutely, thank you. Somebody's raised their hand. I love that. Thank you for your honesty. All right. So my point is, yes, everyone's like, oh, that's interesting. But the biggest take-home message, of course, is that there wasn't a lot of evidence to suggest that was true or not. Because if you look at this next picture, how many people would think that this person could be a top tennis player? And who is it, of course? Who is it? Anyone? Ferris Bueller? Anyone in the chat box? It is I love that you've had a go there. No one's got it yet. It is our very own, those Aussies on the call. He's from Canberra. Yes, it is Nick Kyrgios. So again, if you're a tennis coach and that child walks onto your court, if you go with your assumptions, again, we have to let go of our assumptions as a coach, of course. You might not necessarily, think that this person might go on to be a great player. So just a little bit of a way to open this webinar to say that the qualities that I'm about to share with you are accessible, of course, to all of us. And the presentation goal for today is really for you to think about the qualities that I share and how can you share those with your clients. Because I know every time I share what the 5 qualities that champions have in common, I know that corporates are very interested in this information, and I promise it is accessible to everybody. And of course, to be able to take action. Every time I present, I hope there's just one thing that you can pick up and share either with yourself, with a client, or someone within your community. So, and of course, I'm going to ask one question right at the end of the presentation, and whoever gets that question right will win my online course called the Empower Hour. So a little bit of incentive to continue this awesome chat box that's going on already. So that's our presentation goal, to bring that intersection together between the information and your clients. So the 5 qualities that I'm going to share was actually something that I've always been fascinated in myself. And it was when I had the opportunity to spend some time with Darren Cahill. We've had him on the coaching podcast. And a lot of what he said really aligned with a lot of my core beliefs. So I thought that was the 5 that I was going to go with today. So when he looks at the top 10 male tennis players in the world and the top 10 female tennis players in the world, these were the 5 qualities that he said that they have in common. And don't forget, he's around them all the time at the Grand Slams. So here they are. The first one is work ethic. Again, accessible absolutely to all of us. And there's no doubt Nadal is the hardest working player on the tour. There's no doubt that his attention to detail is second to none. I'm sure you'll all agree. And he has this freezing cold shower 45 minutes before he plays every single time to get him in the battle zone. Because there's no doubt, as a coach, when I'm working with tennis players, having them fall in love with the battle of the competition is 100% what is one of my main focuses. So I love how he's so disciplined, and his work ethic is second to none. Again, accessible to all of us. All right, number 2, purpose. Okay, when I had the opportunity to talk to Tony Roach, again, one of the greatest coaches I think in the world, he's just so humble, and he's also all about respect, and not just, you don't just get respect, you actually have to earn it. So, and you earn that by being clear with your purpose. That was one thing that I really liked that he said. And you can tell he has very strong principles and a coaching philosophy that underpins all of it. And when you're clear with that, as we know as coaches, then your purpose and everything is very much aligned. So that's number 2. Number 3 is belief. So quick story about Victoria Azarenka. I had the opportunity to, as I mentioned earlier, to represent Tennis Australia with the under 14 world team. We were in Prostějov in the Czech Republic, and Australia was playing Belarus, and Victoria had gone on as I think she was a 12-year-old playing in the 14s, and she had beaten our number 1 player pretty convincingly. And then our number 2 player was playing, and she was 4-1 up, and she did 3 double faults in a row. And Victoria was almost inside the court on the side of the fence, and she was saying, Bella, 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 roosh, roosh, roosh. I was like, what? I was like, because we had to sit on the court. It's kind of like a Fed Cup format. And I'm looking down and I'm thinking, who is that? And of course it was Victoria Azarenka. Is so determined, so much self-belief. She's a woman on a mission. I was so happy to see her step up at the US Open last year. And I don't know if anyone saw when the fly even came on her nose. She was just so focused. She was sitting there almost, in a bit of a meditative state, which was awesome. And I think Serena definitely stands out to me as somebody who just has had that belief. And even when she had a couple of injuries in the middle of her career, she asked herself what I think we call the magic question, which is, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is you lose. And if you're comfortable with that, then all right, well, let's go out there and play. But otherwise, in the start of her career and in the end of her career, she's got such strong self-belief that obviously builds up over time. So first person in the chat box, because I need to get the chat box going again, is what was quality number 1? First person, let's see those typing fingers. Who remembers? As we move. Thank you. Well done. Look at that. You're all on it this morning or this evening for our California friend and someone in Canada, I believe. All right, number 4, we are up to resilience. Definitely Novak Djokovic is certainly when he plays, he always is able to bounce back. He's the type of player that you think is out, and he works so hard, I know, in staging his career on his defensive game, and also taking care of those smaller details, the way what he eats, everything's measured, and the way he bounces back is quite incredible. And it was also for anyone recognise that coach, one of the most famous coaches of the world. He's getting on a little bit now, but I had the opportunity to present with him in Rome. That the Pope was the keynote speaker. Actually, it was one of my parents' proudest moments. Good old Catholic parents, love it. That wasn't in the presentation, by the way. I wasn't meant to say that, but like I love how we can go off topic, hopefully. But anyone recognise that person, that coach there? First name Nick, and coached, especially in Florida, in the Mecca, Bradenton, a number of champions from Sharapova, Courier, Agassi, many more. So I had the opportunity to work alongside him, and as I said, present there. Nick Bollettieri, thank you. Now, one thing that he said, and I'll never forget, I was 23 when I was standing on court with him trying to learn the look. Do I see what he sees? And Nick would always say what he believed champions have in common is when they make an unforced error, they are like, oh, can't believe I missed that. But it's how quick they get over it. It's how quick they're able to let it go and just move on. And also I've heard stories about Tiger Woods, yes, poor shot, is absolutely upset with the outcome for 3 steps or 3 to 5 seconds, and then how quickly can you just let it go? And I think resilience in life is such a great quality, a great skill to have in the workplace and in the sporting world. And finally, number 5 is teamwork. I think it's one thing that sometimes I think we think of tennis as an individual sport, but often it's so much goes into one player, and there's no greater story. I think we had someone who checked in from Collins Street. This is one of the greatest coffee places in New York. It's called Little Collins, of course. And who did I happen to bump into there? Ash Barty. And I had brought my tube of Vegemite to add to my avocado toast at the US Open. That was a couple of years ago. But great team, great family support. Even though Roger Tizer, her coach, is that main person that's there with her. There's so many people that go into that, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing her parents a number of times, and they always talk about the team and the foundation that she had. So they're the 5. Does anyone remember number 4? First person in the chat box, what was number 4 of the 5 qualities that all champions have in common? Nicole, thank you. Resilience. All right. And of course, these qualities, are they accessible to all of us? All of those 5 qualities, are they? Absolutely, 100%. So when we let go of our assumptions, and this is one of my clients in near San Francisco who contacted me and said that she wants to train like a pro. And so she sent me this first video. Beg your pardon. She sent me this first video of her tennis game, and check it out.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm 23 years old. I'm a
So one of the coolest things about that dream seeker client is the fact that we've been working with her now for about a couple of months, and she said she already feels like she's training like a pro. She's already living her dream. And yes, it was the same player. She did have her hair cut, but I just love the fact that when I think of those 5 qualities as it relates to her, she is well on the way to living and breathing those champion qualities. So, I think we all have work with clients, or we all come across different people that have these aspirations, and to be able to just share those 5 qualities and allow people to step into their greatness, I think is one of the coolest things about coaching, which I'm sure many of you no doubt will agree. All right, so while we share what all champions have in common from a championship or champion perspective, it's also important to understand and perhaps share what are the 5 most common reasons for failure amongst high performance athletes. So this research comes from a great friend of mine, Kyle Lacroix. He's doing his master's at Harvard. His company is called Sets Consulting, and he interviewed 289 high performance athletes, 145 men and 144 women from 12 different sports and 29 different countries. So I'd like to share with you the top 5. I think there's 7, but we're going to do 5 today. And what I want to link after sharing each of those reasons is I wanted to share some of the most common coaching tools that I use today as it relates to each of these reasons for failure. And perhaps you can relate to some of them as well with your clients. All right, number 1 is fear of failure. This is fear of failure in a lot of projection as well. What if, a lot of things out of their control. And also it's, if they fail, what other people's opinions of failure. So that was pretty high. 71 athletes said fear of failure. And of course, I'm sure maybe some of you might have had the opportunity to watch the Michael Jordan documentary. Very, very fascinating stuff. And, he talks about obviously not even making his high school basketball team or being let go, on that team. He also talks about the number of shots that he actually missed. Everyone talks about the ones he made, but there's been so many when the final buzzer, that last sort of couple of seconds in a game, and he's actually missed the shot. So, I think that's something that we can all relate to. Yeah, absolutely, Heather Jane, as soon as it's published. So at the moment it's in hopefully getting published, being accepted. But as soon as it is, I will definitely pass it on to Natalie to pass it along to you. So the coaching tool that I use most commonly as it relates to this, and especially with my tennis athletes, is anchoring and affirmations. So anchoring in as it relates to being in the present moment. So we use a lot of specific, like the right thumb on the dampener and pressing on the dampener to help stay in the present moment. Because remember, it's that fear of failure. So it's helping them connect that affirmation, which is either I am now, I am present, I am here, I belong here, I enjoy the battle of competing, I am ready, I can do it. But it's not obviously, my forehand's amazing, etc. I'm sure you can all understand what I mean by that. So an anchor, physical trigger, one that I've used for absolute years, thumb, index finger, and middle finger. When they come together behind any of where the strings come together, I just say head, heart, and gut, I can do it. So do that. That was a big one before my TEDx talk. I fired that one off just a few times. But I think it's by far one of the biggest techniques. I think every single athlete and team that I've ever worked with walks away with an anchor and an affirmation as it relates to that one. Number 2, negativity. Now, again, I think before I studied under Natalie, I think I often thought with negativity, no, you have to be positive. And of course, it depends on your personality, depends on your behavioral style, what's going to work best for you. It certainly, you could argue that being negative actually fired John McEnroe up, and a lot of athletes can be that way. But I think as it relates to most players, most often, it's being able to have them be tough on themselves in one of the most empowering of ways. So this is the first time I've ever shared this on a webinar, actually. And this is one of the tools that I've been using more recently. And I got this one from a colleague in the United Kingdom. She's got a great Instagram page, actually, if you just Google Mind Monsters on Instagram. But I've been working with some mind monsters with some of my clients as it relates to negativity. And especially those who've been really stopped in their tracks from negativity. And this is Gina here on the left. So we get them to draw it, we get them to name it, we get them to write down, of course, what their messages are. And I love the joy stealer as well. How will you ever achieve if you can't even X, Y, and Z? With the black cloud sort of over the tennis. These are both adult clients as well, and they've really enjoyed the episode, the coaching tool, because when you get through it, of course, we look at what's the positive intention of the mind monster, which is where the gold dust actually is. So that's the coaching tool that relates to that one. Perfectionism. Tennis is a game of bravery, not perfection. So if I said to you, Rafael Nadal has won 97% of all his matches on clay, what percentage of points? So in the chat box, this is your opportunity. Just have a guess, throw it out from 0 to 100. What percent, if he's won 97% of all his matches, how many points do you think that he has lost at the French Open on the red clay? How many points has he lost? Anyone want to have a go in the chat box? Remember, I just love people that take action. Peter, you are on the money. Yeah, it is. It's 46% at the French Open. You'll see here also, check out the stats there. So these are total career points. This was from 2016. You'll see Roger Federer was number one in the world that year, and he is winning 55%. So in other words, he's losing 45% of points. It comes back to that resilience as well. And is that the same for our females? Absolutely. You can see, look at that. Serena Williams was number one that year, and she's coming second in the rally, as I say to my younger junior players, 45% of the time. So tennis really does reward bravery, not perfection. And the coaching tool is the snap technique. We use with a lot of athletes. So just, again, they allowed 3 seconds or 3 steps, and then they've got to snap down that rubber band that helps them. They can fire off their anchor again and their affirmation. But the snap technique is very effective, just as one of the tools that we use. All right, number 4, as it relates to, remember what champions have in common as it relates to failure, extreme stress. So what we're talking about here is overthinking and underthinking. So we get sort of thinking, and then you choke and freeze. And then we've got underthinking, and you're almost panicking because you can't, your mind just goes blank, and you don't even know what you're thinking about. So that's 41 athletes responded to that. And so the coaching tool that I've had a lot of success with is different ways to compartmentalize with certain players. This particular player, I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to one of my favorite Aussies, Jamie Fullis, who's in an injury phase at the moment. But certainly I had worked with her for 12 months on almost a daily mindset sort of program. And that was one of the biggest tools that she said that she benefited from, because she's got her parents' opinion, she's got the coach's opinion, she's got to keep her ranking up within Tennis Australia, she's got, my advice, the fitness trainer, and all the team that was not always on the same page. So that really helped her to compartmentalize. So I hope that she makes it come back soon. And then finally, the 5th one is that inability to change direction. I'm sure that you've come across this before. It can happen, a number of different ways. It's almost where your ego gets in the way, and they're so stubborn that they won't change. And, also on the flip side, I've seen a lot where if somebody's highest value is loyalty, and so they're working with a coach and almost they've outgrown the coach, and the coach doesn't want to let them go, and they don't want to let go of the coach because they're loyal, and so they're unable to sort of get to that next level. I can think of a pro player at the moment that's sort of in that situation. So I think that's somewhat interesting, and perhaps you can relate. In the chat box, I'd love to hear which of those 5 are most common in your world. Perhaps when you see it in others or in yourself, I really don't mind. But what can you relate to? Beautiful. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Because I think whether you're an athlete or whether you're in the business world, it's everything's very, very similar, and perfectionism is huge. And I love that TEDx talk, Bravery, Not Perfection, one of my favorites there as well. And the coaching tool that's relating to number 5, I definitely learnt through Natalie. So many of my coaching tools through you, Nat, legend. I'm very, very grateful. And I wanted to share this story because it was really, really special. This is the 2018 Junior Fed Cup team. That's us in Malaysia. And, the last time I had taken a junior team away was, many years where mobile phones were not even around, right? So I'm thinking, how am I going to engage this next generation? And rather than come in and, put the rules down and, this is a group of under 16, even though they're a lot taller, but these days, they're under 16 girls. So what we did is we got together as a group and we did our, as Natalie always, one of our favourite lines, in the context of the Junior Fed Cup team, we value. We came up with our crazy quote, we were the incredible raging elephants, which stood for improvement, respect and enjoyment. And then they created the behaviours off the back of that. So rather than me coming in and imposing certain things that I thought might be important to our success, they came up with the different behaviours that related to each of the values. So, for example, as it related to improvement, we had P&O, our potential next opponent. So we would chart the oppositions. We did visualisation on the top floor of the hotel every single morning, a short visualisation and some yoga warrior poses. We had to ask the Malaysian Uber drivers, the taxi drivers, one question about the culture. And we didn't have our cell phones on the table at breakfast, lunch and dinner, and we did beat every other country to breakfast in the morning. And enjoyment, they picked the playlist. We had some rap songs, and we just did the same warm up to these 4 songs every single day. And everyone, even when we had a rain delay, we were doing warrior poses, and everyone's like, why is Australia having so much fun? But we were doing it to rap music, so it was a little bit controversial, but the girls loved it. And when they're happy, as I'm sure everyone can relate, they play well. So that was a cool story. And I thought that this values misalignment is so important. It's what I'm doing here in Washington tomorrow with a huge academy. That's where we're starting. We're starting with their values. I've had a lot of success. I'm sure many of you have, but just another, this college team, they were We Must Sting, work ethic, mental toughness and sports personship, and it's all on a voting system, and we've got the cards for the way we pick the values. This one was the team from Flight Centre. They were the Reese's Peanut Butter Group, respect, personal growth and balanced life. And then finally, I love this one too, because this is an elite Scottish netball team that I worked with. And the CEO, Claire Nelson, an amazing woman, she came out first, and I asked everyone to step up and say what their superpowers are. And she listed, I only asked for 3 and she listed off like 8. It was incredible. It was a little bit intimidating. And then the players sort of then didn't know where to go from there. So we ended up just starting with the values. And then by the end of it, they were getting together in groups and being able to say what each other's superpowers were. And that they were the can-cans, no history, no limits, which we flipped the N, of course, upside down: commitment, ambition, and unity. So, can first person in the chat box, let's go with what was number 5 in the top what was the fifth reason why athletes fail? Does anyone remember, as it relates to values elicitation in the chat box? Yeah, everyone's on it. Thank you, Nathan. I think you might have been first. All right, so what's the game plan? I always love to give a game plan when I present, and the game plan for today is in the next, so of course the game plan is 15, 30, 40 game. Of course, I had to throw in my tennis-ism into the game plan, but I'm hoping there's something in what I've shared, either in the coaching toolkit or in the 5 qualities of champion, or the 5 reasons why athletes fail. Something you could do for yourself in the next 24 hours if you want to get 15 points. But I know some of you, the way the chat box has been going, if you want to get 30 points, what could you do in the next 7 days for one of your clients? Maybe you could share some of these observations or insights. And of course, what comes after 30, 15, 30, first person in the chat box. I'm loving we've got some tennis players here for 40 points. Okay, what's something that you can do in the next 30 days for someone within your community? What's something you can give back? How can you contribute? I'm certainly so happy to be able to contribute this information and be a part of the Coach Week. And that will help you win the game and the game of life, of course. And I'd love to just tell you a little bit more about the Empower Hour, and of course give away one of my Empower Hour online courses to somebody here today. So when I click the next slide, it is going to be the first person is going to win the online course, the Empower Hour, to write in the chat box if you can remember right at the start of the webinar, what makes a great coach. First person? Nicole, you got it. Nicole, well done. I love it. People are typing so quickly that someone who listens. So Nicole, please, I'm going to show my email on the last page. So up to you, of course, reach out to me and I'll grant you access to that online course in the next 48 hours. So this was one of the best workshops I've had when we did what all champions have in common at VaynerMedia in New York. Claude Silver is an incredible woman. She's I think you can't just see her there. I accidentally covered her out with my Empower Hour, but she's the Chief Heart Officer there, and listening is one of their core values. So I just wanted to share, that was one of my favorite experiences in being able to not just coach on a tennis court, but in the workplace as well, which is, just a fabulous life to lead. So I'm sure many of you will agree. Speaking of a fabulous life to lead and on what makes a great coach, I did want to just once again circle back to the fabulous Natalie Ashdown. She is going to be on the coaching podcast next week. I've got that episode coming out next Tuesday. This is when I did my little interview with her. The last time I think I was in Melbourne, actually. It's been a while, unfortunately. I'd love to come home. I normally come home every January, February, March. During the Australian Open. But one little project that I just wanted to plant a seed and let you all know that we are doing a little project together on what makes a great coach. And I'm just so grateful that she agreed to support me in this idea that I have around what makes a great coach. So watch this space, hopefully this year, for more information about that as it relates to not a little project. It's an unbelievable. I love that. I'm getting excited. I'm getting goosebumps thinking that it's actually going to come to fruition. So thank you again, Nat. All right, there's my TEDx talk. Is I'll pop it in the chat box now. I've got the link saved. It's called Unleashing Female Potential. It's of course still applicable to many people. And as I said, I'll pop it in the chat box. Also, the coaching podcast, we interview a lot of tennis coaches and also business coaches. So if anyone wants me to interview, we only ask you 5 questions, the exact same questions every time. Of course, one of them is in 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what makes a great coach? And I always finish by saying that check out my little fortune cookie. It's filled with little inspirational quotes in a chopped up tennis ball, but the ball is in your court. Let's see, did my little tennis ball? I did. The ball's in your court to take action. Who's going to win the game? Who's going 15, 30, 40 points? And let me just pop my email down the bottom there, info@emmadoyle.com.au. And I'll try and, I'll go over my screen today. The ball's in your court to take action always, as we know as coaches. I hope that you have enjoyed this time, and it's been an absolute honour and pleasure spending it with you. So as predicted, I've got 15 minutes. I would open to absolutely any questions as I stop sharing my screen. Thank you, everybody. Let me know in the chat box who's going to go for 15. Are you going to go for 30, 40 points? How many points are you going to go for? As I stop my screen and see if we've got any questions for our anything about the presentation or anything anyone wants to share. More than happy to answer.
Emma, thank you so much. It's so wonderful. I just noticed a question there in the chat box. It was from a little while ago, but it was around Yoroko asked the question, would you elaborate about the connections between resilience and moving on quickly? So I think at the time you were talking about the need to demonstrate resilience, the need to actually understand that you've made a mistake, but then move on. So could you just maybe add a couple of extra ideas? I think you might relate it back to the snap or something like that.
Yeah. I think one thing that tennis rewards, it's a bit like the bravery, not perfection. The ball never bounces in the same way twice. So I think with tennis, and we saw how many points, even today, Rafael Nadal beat Novak Djokovic in Rome today in 3 sets, and he won 97 points and Djokovic won 94 points. Okay, that happened today or yesterday, the last 24 hours. So if you get, as it relates to resilience, your ability to be able to get over yourself and get over your own ego, especially when you've got that easy. I know Nat, you're a former tennis player as well. When you've got that easy ball, we've all done it, and we've just dumped it in the bottom of the net, or we've missed it long, or we've had the whole court to hit into. It's being able to, you know what? I know I can make that ball. I know that I can. Make that shot and be a little bit dark on yourself or dirty on yourself, but not for long. That's the key. As I'm sure we can all relate, when we hold on to things, when we hold on to unforced errors, mistakes, failures, and they keep coming back and they keep revisiting us, it's a recipe for you to continue to stay where you are. I love one of my little fortune cookies that I've hit over the other side of the room now, but it either says, I either win or I learn. And I love that. And I think that's the more we can help, especially, and from a young age as well. I think, I'm not saying we can't learn as adults, but when we can instill that in our junior players, that's why I'm a huge fan of gamification techniques. It's you experience success and failure frequently, success and failure frequently, and success and failure frequently. Like, I want you to experience that. Lots of mini matches and putting you under pressure, and how many goes at match point do you want? And I think we have to practice that way, like in the workplace. The way that you are and you show up in a coaching session is often the results that you see in and what you're measured by. I mean, as coaches as well, we're measured by our results. So I think it's such an important concept, and I think there's so many examples of how quickly can you let go. I think that's the take-home message.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm just thinking about that 55% of shots won, but 45% failures, so to speak, or shots or opportunities to learn from the previous. And I wonder how much we do that actually in our corporate world. How much do we allow? That's, I think, where your application from tennis into the corporate world has such power and dynamic, because I really wonder how much do we allow that other side where we can actually fail and learn. I don't think we do it much actually, but I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that.
Yeah, and I think it's so important that's why sport, as you and I talk about a lot, Natalie, is it reveals your character. It does. It reveals your character. So when you play it, even if you play at a recreational level, the more you can embrace the failure and, not necessarily be comfortable with it, but move on and get to that next moment, and learn from it, the better.
Yeah, and Heather Jane saying there, we get caught up with fear of failure, it holds us back. So quite a lot of agreement there. Just to change tact a little bit, Jacqueline's asked, what's the significance of the hats in the background there? So you've set yourself up, you're in a hotel room, but you've made yourself at home. Would you mind perhaps sharing a little bit there?
Thank you for that question. I didn't think about it. I've been working all day today, so it came in and the hats are on the wall. But let's go with a coach has to wear many hats. Let's go with what I first started with, which was when I realized, after studying through the Open Door coaching group, that I had to change who I was, because I was just always, I'm extrovert and I'm a kinesthetic learner. So if you learn like me and we're similar, and okay, great, we're gonna, we could potentially gel. If you weren't, then I was like, I have to whisper. The power of the pause. I have to perhaps change my energy every now and again, depending on who's in front of me and how they learn best. As for auditory digital learners, I had never even heard of the concept. At least I used to call them high maintenance parents, but they're actually just happy Mondays, because they need a lot of information. They need a lot of time to process information. So there you go. That's we have to wear many hats. And also I love golf. So I think my golf hat's on there.
Thank you.
Why not work? You might as well work and challenge yourself as well. There's no greater challenge than golf for me. So anyway.
Fantastic. Great answer. Jacqueline says great answer. Feel free to pop any other questions you have into the chat box for Emma as well. It'd be great to hear what you're thinking as well. Emma, I do have one question for you. What's the superpower that you call upon to just walk up to people like these, world champions and ask them your question, what makes a great coach? What is it that you draw upon to just enable you to do that?
I think I would say that it probably does stem a little bit from my upbringing. So I'm number 3 of 4 in the most beautiful family who I miss dearly back home. And in many ways, when you are number 3 of 4, just in birth order alone, sometimes you've got to be creative to be heard. And I remember when I first went overseas to play US college tennis, my mum said, don't call home unless you've run out of money or you're in jail, because it's so expensive, and go and live your life and see you later. And so I think, it's a little bit sink or swim, isn't it? You've got to create your own destiny. And I think also I wasn't an exceptional tennis player. Yes, I played college tennis and state grade pennant, if anyone knows that, in Melbourne. However, no one's ever heard of me, right? So the ability to use tennis as the vehicle to be able to create the life that I have, I just am so grateful to the sport. And I love saying that we have to always be in service to the sport. And when I come from that lens cap, it always helps me just go, I'm just being in service to the sport. So if I'm being in service to the sport, and that's one of my all-time gold dust questions, whatever we end up giving, we need to name that question, right? Then it allows me, it's an opening, and there's no wrong answer. As we saw in that picture that we showed earlier, we've got hundreds of answers, different answers to what makes a great coach. And so it's a nice little opener. And it's a way to start the dialogue. Open questions, a skill that I learned back in 2007.
I can't believe it was 2007. Actually, that's really amazing as well.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Emma before we round off here?
I think might have seen one earlier about. James asked, can you elaborate on the techniques in compartmentalizing? Sure. Some of the techniques that I had success with, especially as it related to that specific player, was in journaling and the Hawkeye. We call it, obviously in tennis, you've got the Hawkeye, right? So we called it the different perspectives of her dad, what does her dad want for her? And then what does she want for her? And then if she was the Hawkeye, what would the Hawk want? Looking down on the situation, what would the Hawk want? So that was one way for her to then understand and compartmentalize that, okay, well, the Hawk's just saying, Dad's tough on me because he really cares. So again, it's a little bit like the Mind Monster, one of the Mind Monster exercises. It's finding that positive intention within somebody's, and if she draws those conclusions from the Hawkeye, then she's got the ability to rewrite her own story, and she can rewrite that story with regards to taking all that information and saying, oh, they actually just all want me to, they all care about me and they all want what's best for me. So I'm going to now choose what's best for me, and I'm going to park it at the door. Another one we use with compartmentalize is stepping over the line, the white line. We use that one with the Sirens netball team. So they call it white line fever. So they basically, the running joke was, if you've got a backpack with all your stuff on it, once you step over that white line at training, you had to get rid of the backpack, loosen the weight off the shoulders. And that was one of the ways to compartmentalize. So just little techniques that, again, what works for them. And the more, as Natalie's always taught me, that they can come up with it. The more you just say, hey, here's some ideas, or here's some examples. When when you're in the options of working with a client, it's amazing what they come up with as well. That always astounds me, especially when I work with kids as well. I love that. So thank you for your question. I hope that was useful.
Yeah, James says, thank you, very helpful. I love that reminder also for those experienced coaches on the line around anchoring. So allowing people to design their own anchor, design their own affirmations is one thing, but linking that through to the anchor so they can fire off physically in the body. It's a very good reminder, Em. Thank you for that. For those people that are experienced coaches, might have thought about that a long time ago, but need to bring it back into our practice. I, for one, I need to think about that more. So thank you. Yeah.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Well, there's so much to learn from you, Em. We're so grateful for your time this evening in Washington, DC. There's a lot of gratitude coming through the chat. So if you'd like to express gratitude to Emma, please feel to pop a message into the chat. I have dropped the CCAU certificate there into the chat for you. So if anyone is wanting to pick it up, you can just download that CCAU certificate. So on behalf of us all here at Open Door, Emma and our partners, Synergy Global, thank you so much for sharing your energy, your wisdom, your ideas. Thanks for giving us a game plan. So high achiever, I'm aiming for 40 points and people can hold me accountable to that if you like. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute privilege to learn from you this afternoon. I'll turn the recording off and people can download that. But we've got a couple of minutes if anyone wants to express gratitude to Emma as well. So thank you once more.
Thank you to the Open Door Coaching Group, and thanks for everyone's interaction in the chat box. I'm a competitive being, so I wanted to have a little bit of a competition going, and everyone was just flying in with the answers and beautiful listening, memory recall. I loved it, and thank you for everyone and mentioning energy. And yeah, it's something that I live and breathe. And as Nat always knows, it's always been one of my drivers and one of my things that what I believe makes a great coach. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate all the gratitudes coming in.
Yeah, we're energized just being around you, Em. So thank you so much.
Beautiful.